Good morning, Bapak Ibu, teachers in Indonesia, and all participants. Welcome to our today's webinar, Climate Action in Language Education. So this program is held by British Council Indonesia in collaboration with TEFLIN, the teaching of English in Indonesia as a foreign language. So last Thursday, April 22, it was the Earth Day or Hari Bumi. Yeah, it is really a time for us to look at our Earth. As Greta Thunberg, a climate change activist, has urged, it is still not too late to move for our environment. Then the question is how in our profession in English teaching, we may contribute in raising this environmental awareness. So today in this webinar, we would like to discuss the impactful ways to integrate environmental issues in English language teaching. Okay, now it is our webinar today on climate action in language education. So before we start, I need to read the house rules. So the webinar guide that we need to be on the same page, that British Council will record the whole webinar session. And by attending this session, you acknowledge that your image and comments may be recorded and rebroadcasted. Please type your question in the chat box on YouTube by mentioning your name, organization, and also the city. So I will summarize and deliver the question to the speakers. And after the session ends, you will be given a link to complete evaluation survey. So link to download e-certificate and materials will be provided after you submit your feedback. Okay, and then for the next, to start, we will have the keynote speech, and I would like to invite Calm Down. So Calm Down's the Director English Education and Society, British Council, Indonesia. And now, Calm, time is yours.
Okay, good morning, semua. Thank you very much, Pat Taufik, and good morning to everybody across Indonesia, English teachers, members of TEFLIN, for joining this webinar called Climate Action in Language Education. I'm delighted to be with you here this morning. My name is Colm Downs, and I'm the Director for English Education and Society at the British Council, Indonesia. Before I begin, I want to say that our thoughts and prayers are with the sailors in the submarine in Bali, and we hope that those efforts to rescue them will be successful. So our thoughts are with them this morning. But I want to start this webinar just by thanking TEFLIN for their partnership. We are very close partners with Indonesia's largest English Language Teachers Association. And I really appreciate all of you joining us for this special and important webinar about integrating environmental issues into your teaching. I'm going to give a keynote talk for about half an hour this morning, and then there'll be some time for questions. And after I've done the Q&A, we have some very special guests this morning. So we have joining us, I think from Bali, is Talia and Ira from Bye Bye Plastic Bags and Youthtopia. Some of you may know about Bye Bye Plastic Bags and Youthtopia, but if you don't, you're going to hear more from them. And then after that, we will hear from Renata from Ambon and Ismail in Makassar, both teachers who are going to talk about how they integrate environmental issues into their English teaching. And there'll be some further Q&A with those speakers following that session. And then at the end, you can finish our questionnaire and get a certificate for attending this morning's special talk. So thank you very much. I'm now going to start sharing my screen, and we'll get into this webinar properly. Let me do that now. Okay, so as I said, this is the lineup for today, and I've mentioned those. This session we've extended it a little bit, I should say. So originally it was just going to be 1 hour. It will now be an hour and a half. So I hope that's okay with you, and I hope you stay with us until the end. If you have to leave, obviously this recording will be freely available afterwards. I'd also like to get to know a little bit about you. I know you registered for this, but I thought we could do a quick Mentimeter. I'm sure you're all familiar with Mentimeter. This is the code for the Mentimeter. And actually, if I put it here, I think the first question I want to do, if you could go to Menti, and the code is 41209543. I'll put that in the chat maybe, or I can ask somebody to help me put that in the chat. Where's the chat? Let's see if we start getting some results and start seeing where you are from this morning. I wonder. That's my first question. Does anyone have? Let's have a look. See if it's being answered. I'll have a look. Okay. Fantastic. Somebody is from Jambi. Mataram. Okay. I'm just going to let those results come in for a minute. I know you can. We're seeing where people are coming from. Here we go. It's going to speed up as we get people from across Indonesia joining our webinar this morning. Oh, we have somebody from the Philippines has found our webinar and is joining us from the Philippines. Welcome to our webinar. This is most people from Jakarta. Jakarta is in the #1 position, but Jogja closely behind. Tangerang has a good showing. And it's great to see this filling up and to see people joining us from across Indonesia. All right, I might just give that another minute. It's really interesting to see where people are joining us from. It's great to see. I can see, where else? Mataram, Lombok, Sulawesi Selatan. Good morning. Where else have we got? We got North Borneo, Sumatra, Semarang, fantastic. And I think we have Bandung. Well, we will keep this open, so you can keep telling us where you're from, where you're joining us from this morning, and we'll let that continue. There is a second question, so if you have time, you can also answer the second question, and I will show you the results of this Mentimeter later on. I might come back to it after my keynote talk. Okay, so good morning. You can also tell us in the chat if you like. You can go to the chat and tell us what your name is, where you're from, where you teach English. We had somebody from China joining us. That's fantastic. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go back to my presentation now. We've already got 80 responses so far. Riau has just, West Papua, fantastic. I'm going to go back to my presentation. So, as I said, this is the Climate Action in Language Education plenary special webinar. 2 days ago was World Earth Day, and we have got a new program, the British Council, called Climate Action in Language Education. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, As I said, my name is Colm Downs. I am the Director of English Education and Society at the British Council Indonesia. And that's our Mentimeter. If you want to keep answering those questions, I'll just let you have a look at that for any late joiners this morning. So just to give you some context about the British Council's new Climate Connection programme, some of you might know that this year, the UK will host what is called the 26th UN Climate Change Conference of the Parties, or COP26 in Glasgow in November this year. We hope it will still be face-to-face. And if it is, these climate talks will be the biggest international summit the UK has ever hosted. It will bring together over 30,000 delegates, including heads of state, climate experts, to agree coordinated action to tackle climate change. I think Indonesia has hosted COP in the past. Maybe somebody in the chat can tell us which COP and which year did Indonesia host this very important summit. And as the COP26 president, the UK government is committed to working to international collaboration, to working with countries from around the world, including the countries on the front line of climate change, to inspire action. We are working with them, the British Council, on a special programme focused on education, science, youth, research. So it's across all of our programmes, and we call this programme the Climate Connection. And this website, this link here, is now live. It's a new website on our British Council website. So you can have a look at all of the different things that we're doing as part of our new program called the Climate Connection. And within the Climate Connection, there is a program called Climate Action in Language Education. And I want to just tell you a few things that we're doing in that area. So one of the things that we're doing is a series of 3 online modules designed to train teachers how to integrate environmental issues into their English language teaching, and to equip learners with the skills that they need to understand, discuss, and engage critically with climate change issues. There are 3 modules with a total of 9 hours of learning. All 3 modules come with comprehensive resources, videos, Q&A, discussions, practical examples, and a certificate if you complete them. And the first module, number 1, it starts on Wednesday, this week coming. So module number 1 is called Introducing Environmental Issues into Language Teaching. And you can register for it now. And the link, if you want to find out more and register for this online course, you can do that. In addition to our online training for teachers, we have developed a podcast series called The Climate Connection. And our podcast series explores the relationship between the climate crisis and language education. I'm going to play you the trailer for the podcast now. So I hope you'll be able to hear it clearly. See if you can recognize the voice. Who is the first voice you hear? Let's see.
The Climate Connection. I think it's Nelson Mandela who said education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world.
La conexión climática.
There's a large group of people who are often left out of the climate conversation. There's so much that we can be learning from indigenous communities around the world, for example, who, despite contributing the least to climate change, are facing some of the worst effects.
We ran a project called BYOB, Bring Your Own Plant. Unbelievable results. We were getting ADHD cut by 3/4. Turns out it wasn't the kid that had the attention deficit. It was the environment was deficiting their attention,
The Climate Connection. Climate Action in Language Education. A new 10-part podcast series from the British Council. Available
wherever you get your podcasts.
The Climate Connection.
Okay, well, that's our podcast series. I don't know if you are a fan of podcasts. I am. I like listening to them when I go for a walk. But it's a great way of improving your knowledge and your English skills. So the podcast series is coming soon in about 4 weeks time. So I'll let you know when it's live. Now, one of the other things, the big things that we've been doing is some research into what are different people in the ELT sector, the English language teaching sector, doing to tackle climate change. So we've been talking to teachers like you. We've been talking to students. We've been talking to publishers who write course books. We've been talking to all different stakeholders in the global ELT industry. And our research will come out in June. And this morning, I'm going to share with you some of the initial results from this research. And very interestingly, when you registered for this webinar today, you will have answered a number of questions. So thank you for doing that. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to show you your results in comparison to some global results when we go through these findings. So let's have a look at some of the results. One of the things I should say about the research is that we were both looking across our sector at what we can do. You can see here the damage our community does to the environment that every industry or every community does a little bit. So for example, how could our schools be greener schools? Use of energy, use of paper, that kind of thing. But also the opportunity that we have for climate change education. I'm going to talk a lot about climate change education this morning. Because as teachers, you have a very important role to play in raising the awareness of climate change with your students. In our research, as I said, we talked to all of these different groups, teachers and students, institutions, publishers, and our research will be published in early June. So let's have a look at some results. There was a global survey that we did with teachers back in February. And when you registered for this webinar, you completed some similar questions. And I just want to say we had 1,887 responses from around the world, 109 countries. And we had 964 Indonesian teachers register for this webinar. So we're going to be able to compare these results. So it's really interesting when you look at these. So the people who completed the survey, look at this is the gender breakdown, and you had 72% women, female, and 26% on here were male. Now, I wonder, when you look at the results just for today's webinar, amazingly, we had a very, very similar result. Very, very similar result. So that's an interesting find for me, I think, already, that we had 75%. So I wonder, 75% of you watching are female English teachers, and about 25% of you are male. And I wonder how that would be well, this is the global response. This is the Indonesian response. Let's move on a little bit. How often do you already incorporate environmental issues into your lessons? So global response is saying 45% said sometimes, 34% said often, but 11% rarely. So let's compare that with Indonesia. And there you have, where you have very similar in terms of sometimes. So again, you got sometimes was the largest response, but here was a difference. So you can see 22% said rarely, so it's not exactly the same. And you had actually, 6.7% of you said never. So there's 6.7 of you watching today that never do this. So that maybe that's why you're with us today, to find out more about how you can. Let's have another question. How often do you use environmental issues or climate change topics in project work? And again, similar results to the last question. The majority of you, or the largest group of you, are saying sometimes. But again, there's this difference between rarely and often with the global response. We'll go on to the next question. Now, this is your beliefs about how our learners view climate-related topics. Are they going to be motivated and engaged in those topics, or will they find them boring and want to talk about something else? Globally, 53% of you said that adult learners were engaged by climate change topics. But here in Indonesia, you had a huge 75%. So this is a bit of a difference. A bigger proportion of you think that adult learners in Indonesia are engaged by climate-related topics. That's a really interesting find and very positive to hear. What about teenagers? Some of you teach teenage students. Globally, 62% said we're engaged. But here we got 71%, so a higher proportion in Indonesia. Again, very positive results. It's great to hear. A very high number. So if they're engaged by these topics, then we want to be able to teach them well. What about young learners? Can we talk about the environment with very young learners? Well, 58% of the global responses from 109 countries said yes, 58%. And Indonesia, again, really positive, 67% of you saying yes, young people are engaged by climate-related topics. So that's, again, really, really interesting, very positive to hear. Do you encourage your students to discuss climate change and sustainability in communities and with their families? Globally, teachers said yes, they do that, 77.6%. Indonesia, slightly higher, well done. I think that's very good. 81% encouraging your students to go home, talk about these issues with their families and their communities. Again, a positive result. But still 18, almost 20%, that's 1 in 5 saying no. So maybe there's still some change to come. What about the course book? Your course book that you use to teach? Do you believe that climate change themes should be embedded throughout each unit in the course book? And 45% of the global audience said yes, and agreed that they should be embedded throughout each unit. It's quite fascinating because at the moment, they're probably not. There's probably one unit or one short, a couple of pages looking at environmental issues. This is saying throughout each unit. So, throughout your lessons, it might not be the direct focus, but there should be some focus on environmental issues. And in Indonesia, you had an even higher percentage of you believed that, 68%, 69% almost. Are you encouraged by your institution to do this? Are you encouraged by your school to include climate topics in your teaching? Globally, we had 57%. In Indonesia, 68%, which is very positive. But are you getting training and support from your institutions in how to do this well? And here we get a bit of a negative answer. You can see that not many in the global response almost 70% are not getting much training. In Indonesia, it's slightly better, but still, it's a much better result, but still the majority is saying that they haven't received training from their institution in how to do that. So this is an area for us to work on. Do you need some professional development, which is why you're here today? Globally, you can see agree and agree strongly. This is almost 80%. And in Indonesia, you've got, wow, I mean, this is 95%, which is why you're here today. And I think the last question, are you planning on including more climate-related topics in the future? Globally, 84%, but in Indonesia, 94% of you said, yes, we are going to include more climate-related topics in the future. So this is really interesting results from our teachers survey. And I specifically wanted to focus on the teachers survey today because this is really a webinar for teachers. But I'm aware of time. There are some other findings which I'm going to put in the slides that I share with you in the pack. So you'll read all of this, don't worry. But I only have about sort of another 20 minutes for this presentation. So I want to focus on a couple of other examples. This is a school that somebody made me aware of. This is an SMK, Wikram Bogor. And this is a school which has really become an eco school. It's a very positive example. Here you can see one of the students taking care of some plants on the roof of this SMK school. I wonder if your school has something similar. Let's just have a look at this excellent school in Bogor. Okay, I will send you the video. I'll come back. I'm sure you enjoyed watching that, but I've got some other things to tell you and some other videos to play, but it's a brilliant school. And I'm sure there are many other schools like that across Indonesia. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that now. So in this next part of my presentation, I'm coming to the key questions really, is why should you integrate climate content into your teaching? And again, I'm going to talk about how can you do this? So first of all, my first kind of reason would be why should you? Simply, this is a global crisis. The climate change, we call it climate change. Now we're beginning to call it climate crisis and climate emergency. The impact of this is getting more and more serious, and the need for everybody to act is becoming more and more apparent. My own kind of first big wake-up call, if you like, to this crisis was reading this book by Mark Linus. And in this book by Mark Linus, he goes through a kind of degree by degree analysis of what is going to happen if we don't tackle the climate crisis and reduce the carbon emissions to try to limit the global temperature rise to less than 2 degrees, ideally 1.5 degrees. But the scientists are predicting that at the current rate, the temperatures will rise between 1 and 6 degrees. And when I read this book, it tells you what will happen if it goes up to 3 or 4 or 5 degrees. It's terrifying. Greta Thunberg, last year, I think in Davos, she said, I want you to act as if your house is on fire, because it is. It is an emergency and we all need to see what we can do. The other thing I would say, everybody has a role to play, including an education or climate change education is critically important. It's an essential element. And it's been highlighted by countries and international organizations around the world. Some of you will be familiar with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and this is UN Sustainable Development Goal 13, called Climate Action. And it calls upon all countries to integrate climate change education throughout the education system, not to mainstream it in national education policies across the curriculum and assessment, not just in science, but in all subjects. And this includes English language teaching. Several countries around the world have started integrating climate change education into their curriculum, but as it's a relatively new subject, not all are doing it, and not all are doing it very well. Another international agreement, this is the Paris agreement that many people talk about. I need to move this so you can see that. The Paris Agreement in 2015, again, it called upon countries and ministries of education to enhance climate change education. However, this is not happening enough at the moment. This on the right, this is, you can see, this is a statement by the UN Youth Envoy saying, climate education is key. Article 12 of the Paris Agreement calls for climate education, but in many parts of the world, this doesn't happen, and information about climate change is not available for students. This needs to change.
Is it important to include topics like mental health, climate change, and activism in today's curriculum?
Is our education systems today updated enough to actually talk about the issues that are affecting the generation that is going to live with the repercussions of the consequences of the decisions that are being made today? For an example, I remember when I was in high school, when we learned about climate change, it was about sort of an ice cap and a polar bear. And we were never sort of made to understand or taught how climate change is affecting us today as we are in Sri Lanka, sort of in my village where I'm living, So I think from here until now, I don't think much has been done to actually familiarize and contextualize some of these things that are still concepts for many young people, even though that is the reality that they're living in. So that bridging that concepts into the lived realities is not happening. even though intergovernmentally governments have agreed, the Paris Agreement's 12th article of the Paris Agreement says that climate education has to be mainstreamed into educational curriculums. But except for Italy, who has made a commitment to make climate education mandatory, no other country has even spoken about it.
Is it?
Okay, so as the UN Youth Envoy just said, that not enough countries, there is progress being made, but not enough. And she says only Italy is going to make it a legal requirement for climate change education to be in the curriculum. This is an old article actually from The Guardian talking about, this is 2014, talking about it's time to teach climate change in school. And here's how. We need to make more progress. Let me continue my presentation. You might say, but I'm just an English teacher, What about why me? Well, I just want to draw your attention to this quote. This was written by Rosalind Appleby. You can see here, she said back in 2016, all those involved in English language education need to consider how we might contribute to building a safer and more sustainable world, and how English language students, wherever they may be, might be encouraged to analyze, understand, and act on environmental problems. Your job, all teachers' jobs, we prepare students for the future, and we talk about critical thinking and collaboration. These skills are really important, but climate change education is going to be incredibly important. We're going to need to adapt to new green jobs, and possibly being able to understand the challenges by climate change and deal with those challenges. And it's young people that are going to have to live in that future, and it's our job as teachers to prepare them. So get started today, and here's how. I'm going to give you 8 tips to finish my plenary. So these are my tips for you. Tip number 1, you don't have to be a climate scientist or expert. I'm not. I don't think any English teachers are climate experts, but I think it is good to raise your awareness, your climate and environmental literacy, along with your students. It might be that your students know more than you do. That's okay, that's fine. They could teach you, they could give you some tips on how you could be a greener teacher. Learn together, okay? Are you familiar with terminology like the NDC targets? Or, you can do some more reading and better understand your own climate and environmental literacy along with your students. Tip number 2, I would say, is personalize the course book. I think this is incredibly important. Yesterday I was at a conference. It was online, but it was run by the UK. And in that conference, there was a speaker called Ben Crompton, who runs a website called ELT Sustainable, along with another guy called Owen Llewellyn. And he talked about the problem sometimes with course books. He called it the polar bear problem. He said, you often might see, when we talk about the environmental issues in the curriculum, people talk about melting ice caps. And this, certainly for students in Indonesia, isn't going to be very relatable. How many Indonesian students have seen the snow or worry about melting ice caps? So you need to make your environmental lessons relevant to your learners and their context, your community. What are the environmental issues in Papua or in Sulawesi or in Solo or in Bandung, you know? What about plastic in the sea? That's a big issue in Indonesia, or the burning of plastic and pollution or forest fires. So these kind of things. So make sure that when you're using the course book, that you can personalize it and make it about your students and what is interesting for them. There's a lot of free resources out there. There's free resources for English teachers, but there's also a lot of really, really high quality resources by many other organizations for, not specifically for English teachers, but you could adapt to these and use them yourselves with your learners. I think this is an organization called Climate Visuals. And you can see here their quote, they said, climate change has an image problem. Help us ditch the tired climate tropes and develop relatable, informative, motivating, human representative images for climate change. So using these pictures of melting ice caps are not going to be relatable for your students. In the media, it's an article here by the Guardian newspaper. They've said the same thing. They are rethinking the images we use for our journalism. Here we go. The picture editor, why we're going to be using fewer polar bears and more people to illustrate our coverage of the climate emergency. Yeah, we've got to make this a human issue that affects real people. So here's an image, for example, that was from the Climate Visuals website. This is a real photograph of in Demak in central Java, and you can see that flooding is, we're all aware in Indonesia how flooding is getting more and more of a problem as part of these extreme changes in our weather systems. So let's make this a human problem. And embed sustainability throughout your teaching. So, for example, if you don't have many units at the moment on the environment, that's okay. Whatever you're teaching, if you think about it carefully, you could probably find an environmental connection to that lesson. So let's say you're teaching a lesson about transport. You might start off by very simply learning about cars and motorbikes and aeroplanes, but maybe at the end of that lesson you might discuss with your students which forms of transport are the most environmentally friendly. So you can see how a lesson on transport could have an environmental connection. If you were doing a lesson on shopping and maybe clothes, you might learn the names of clothes or talk about shopping, but then you may be able to discuss which, you might have a discussion about consumerism, or, do you throw things away or do you keep things and look after them, which will be better for the environment? So I think when you're planning your lesson, wherever you can think about getting environmental issues into that. You could put on what we call your green tinted spectacles. Look at every lesson with an environmental eye and think about how you might be able to, maybe 5 minutes or 10 minutes, have an environmental connection to that lesson. Obviously, Indonesia is such a wonderful country, beautiful country, lots of green spaces, nearly everywhere, not so many in Jakarta. But if you're not in Jakarta, I think there are a lot of green spaces, and where possible, go outside and teach outdoors or do green projects with your students. Or you might be able to have green projects in your school, like in that SMK school in Bogor. and get them to grow some plants or fruit or vegetables. And I think this idea of projects, I mean, at the moment during this pandemic, we've been stuck at home with our screens, but one of the things is we've got much better at what we call asynchronous learning. That learning doesn't only take place in the classroom face-to-face, and language practice doesn't only take place in the classroom and face-to-face. So giving your students a task to go and do outside the classroom in their, in groups or in pairs or on their own. Maybe they could do a survey. Maybe they could make a short film about somebody in the community who is tackling climate change in English, and then they could share that film with other students, and you could give feedback on their language performance. I'm getting towards the end of my tips now and the end of my talk. Another tip I have is to join a community of practice. So what does it mean? A community of practice it could be 3 teachers in your school who decide to talk about how you integrate environmental issues in your school. Or it could be 20 teachers in your town or in your city, sharing ideas, learning from each other. Or it could be something more, you are all members of TEFLN, and TEFLN is a fantastic example of a community of practice. You attend conferences, webinars like this one. You share things on WhatsApp or on Facebook with each other. So the best way of learning these new ideas and new skills is through these kind of communities of practice. There are a few others that I'll just tell you about. So there's a Facebook group called ELT Footprint. It's got 3,500 members. You could join that Facebook group if you're on Facebook. There's lots of tips and suggestions there. If in the UK, our version of TEFLN is IATEFL, and within IATEFL we have some special interest groups. We have one that's focused on global issues, so we call that GSIG, the Global Issues Special Interest Group. And in America, they have a social responsibility special interest group just to focus on all areas around kind of global issues, including climate change. So those are my, excuse me, those are my 8 tips. It's probably good that I'm about to finish because I'm beginning to lose my voice. Those are my 8 tips. I'll just bring that there. So I hope that I'm sure if you're at this webinar today, many of you are probably already doing a lot of these things yourself with your students, which is great. And maybe I've given you a few new ideas this morning, and I've given you a reason for integrating climate change topics into your English lessons. The time to act is now. This is my call to arms. You can start making a difference right now. And one way you can start right now, if you wish, is to register for our online modules starting next week. Again, it's the first module is 3 hours, but it's self-paced. You can do it in your own time. And if you do register, you'll get to this page and you can sign in, and the course starts on Wednesday. So I look forward to hearing more from you in the future. I hope to see some photographs from your classes. I think we will try to set up a page where you can share those. I'll talk to TEFLN, but we want to really hear from you and see what you're doing, or maybe see some examples of community projects. I think we might hear about some later from Ismail and Renata, certainly maybe from Bye Bye Plastic Bags. So that's all from me. Again, my name's Colm. You can follow me on Twitter. And thank you very much for joining this morning. If I go back to the Menti, that's the final thing. I can see if it's updated. There we are. We have, it's coming up. Or if I reset it, no, there it is. So we had great results. I wanted to know how I can see the next result, but I'll tell you later. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I think we've run out of time for Q&A. I'm going to come back later, so I'll be around for Q&A, but we're going to have to hand straight over, I think, back to our moderator for the next part of today's webinar. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Colm, for the insightful talk. Yeah. It is interesting that 94% of Indonesian teachers would like to plan to incorporate the climate-related topics. So it is a call from Pak Colm that we need to act now and how to incorporate and integrate the climate change in our classroom. So it's time for us to wear the green spectacles. So what's also very important is to contextualize how to do it in our context in Indonesia, that it can be really useful and to influence our students also to move. So by thinking that, we will also have like a sharing session in 3 sessions. So for the first time, we would like to have from bye-bye plastic bags, and then we will have the practical experience from Pak Ismail Anas and then from Ibu Renata Nikijulu. So before I pass the microphone to the 3 of them, so I would like to introduce the next speakers in sharing session. So it will be started from bye-bye plastic bags. So bye-bye plastic bags is a non-governmental organization, NGO, driven by youth to say no to plastic bags. They envision a world free of plastic bags, and where the young generation are empowered to take action, and their mission is to empower people to do what is right through education, campaigns, and political meetings. So I believe it's going to be interesting to listen to what they're doing. So already with us, we have Aira Matondang, so the co-head of content bye-bye plastic bags Jakarta, and also we also have Talia Hagana, as the team leader of bye-bye plastic bags Jakarta. So we have like 10 minutes for both of you. Aira, Talia, right now time is yours.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Let us share our screen first. Okay, can everybody see it? Okay, Talia, would you like to start?
Okay, good morning, everyone. First and foremost, it is an honor to be here. My name is Talia, as mentioned previously. I'm the co-leader of bye-bye plastic bags Jakarta.
And my name is Aira, and I serve as the head of content on bye-bye plastic bags Jakarta. And I essentially coordinate and edit all of the written publications under bye-bye plastic bags Jakarta. Today, we are really excited to introduce bye-bye plastic bags to youth and how our movement is imbued with the spirit of youth.
Okay, so before we actually start presenting our main points, we would like to invite all the attendees here, whether you're in the Zoom meeting or you're watching this from YouTube Live or later on streaming. We would like to invite you to actually take a breath in full consciousness. All right, so you may take your time to inhale and exhale. Okay, thank you. I'm seeing people here in the Zoom meeting. I'm actually doing it. Thank you. And okay, so my colleague and I actually believe that it is under our awareness that every time we take a breath, we're inhaling oxygen. All right, but we're not sure if everyone is aware that actually 80% of the oxygen we're inhaling every second of our life comes from the ocean, 80%. And sadly, the source of oxygen that we're so reliant on is now dominated by a lot of types of waste, and mostly plastic waste. And of course, it effectively jeopardizes our existence on this planet Earth. And of course, it also brings a lot of more negative impacts on a lot of sectors, such as death for marine animals, and then degradation of our environment. And of course, it is also a drawback for our economy in the long term as well. And as it is such a concerning and pressing issue, our founders were highly dedicated to start make a change in plastic usage.
So these are our founders, Moati and Isabel, on day one, ready for their mission to make Bali a plastic bag-free island. So they were 12 and 10 at the time, which is 2013, and they saw a problem and they didn't want to wait until they were older to kind of create a solution for it.
Okay, so the rest was history, and Bye Bye Plastic Bags was born. And it was actually born without a proper business plan or a strategy or funding available. But these two girls here were actually able to manage to start their mission. And of course, we believe it's because of their passion, their awareness, their dedication. But we have to admit as well that it is also because of the people around them, the environment, the supportive environment. It's because of the adults that chose to listen to them, to what they had to say, that believe in them, that they can actually make a change. So it also shows us how youth involvement can actually encourage if adults, especially teachers, you take children or see children and their ideas more seriously and believe in their power to create change.
So bouncing back on that, we believe that education is key. If people are not aware of the problem, how will they be part of the solution? So with that, Bioplastic Bags has spoken to over 500,000 of kids and also distributed thousands of educational booklets across Indonesia. We believe that fun interactive sessions are a good way to get people involved, especially students.
And next, we also believe in creativity. So creativity or thinking outside the box is actually a quick lesson that the movement of Bioplastic Bags learned early on. And in order, and hence we have made a lot of inclusive events. We include everyone, as much as people as possible, to actually join our movement, to actually together say no to plastic, single-use plastic. And it is really also a thing that schools can actually organize for their students to shed exposure and inspire interest in pressing issues of our era.
So even with their young age, Monty and Isabel are able to create a sustainable and long-standing movement that have had a lot of impressive achievements and a constant source of inspiration to young changemakers. One of our most important achievements, one of our most highlighted one, is Bioplastic Bags' role in influencing the plastic bag ban in Bali, which was reenacted in 2019 Ocean Island-wide.
And next year we have the map, maybe you can see here on our presentation slide. Yeah, so even after the goal is achieved, which is to make Bali plastic free, the initial goal, the journey of Bioplastic Bags is not like stopping there. It's actually far from done, because now we have a global movement of 60 teams in over 30 countries in the world. Here in Indonesia, we have 7 teams in 7 different locations: Batam, Bogor, Bandung, Jakarta, and more. And remember, it is a youth-led movement. Those 2 girls that you saw previously in the previous slide, Melati and Isabel, actually made this is an actual thing, a real change, and it is a global movement now.
Right, so because we come from the Jakarta chapter of Bioplastic Bags, we too would like to share a bit more about our own organization. So like all of the other kids that are inspired by what Melati and Isabel did, our original founder was also wanted to put this drive into action. Therefore, Bioplastic Bags Jakarta was born in 2016. Currently, we are the 3rd generation of the team, and we are headed by our very own Emma and Talia. We are also completed with over 20 schools across the Jabodetabek area. Our key pillars of focus are education, sharing solutions, policy, and global reach. We are also dedicated to using our creativity to kind of engage with our audience, as most of them are also of our age. One of the most achievements we are proud of is our ability to hold routine cleanups and then participate in marches, and also our strong support system between the members of Bioplastic Bags Jakarta.
Okay, so as Ira has just mentioned just now, most of our work is actually a field-based work. And in the current pandemic situation, it is actually a challenge for us to implement all the programs or actions that we used to actually just do in the field-based condition. And so to offset this, we're now focusing on consistently posting on Instagram to have an active social media presence. And actually, it's not just being active on social media, but we're holding seminars. We're going to schools. We're helping schools starting their own school clubs. We're making webinars, educate children, educate students as well that do not really have the access to learn all the things about the environmental studies that we might, Ira and I, have in our school. And actually, it is also a challenge for Ira and I and all of our colleagues as well, as students that we know it's been almost or even more than a year that we've been going to online school. It's not actually an easy thing. We have to maintain our mental health, our personal life, and then, academically, we have to pursue our career in academic and then this bioplastic bags. But again, I personally think that it is a crisis. It is an urgent thing that it's worth all the effort, all the work, all the dedication. And so we're doing this and we're not stopping. And yeah, Ira.
So as we previously discussed before, we want to urge adults, especially teachers, as they are like second parents to kids, to lend an ear to kids' insights and ideas. Bioplastic Bag might have not launched with the help and support of adults around Melati and Isabel. So even with their really immense patience at that time. With this, adults can take a very active participation on youth-led movements by utilizing their own position to help the passion of kids and kind of empower their voices.
Okay, so here, second, in terms of waste in general, schools can actually reenact programs where waste is immediately separated in school. So waste segregation at school. This will teach students to be more mindful of their conscious consumption and knowledge and commitment on waste segregation. And through this, we truly believe that real change starts in the classrooms, and habits that are implanted there will have lasting impacts on each individual.
Right, so as aforementioned, Bioplastic Bag comprises of multiple local chapters. We are always encouraging those who have the same vision as Bioplastic Bags to check out the team at their own area and kind of participate in their activities. We are also open to create. You are also welcome to create your own team under the guidance and supervision of our global team. One interesting feature of Bioplastic Bags Jakarta is actually we have school clubs. So each school will have their own Bioplastic Bags Jakarta in their schools, and the main goal is to make their campus plastic free. So there's definitely something you kind of can encourage your children to do, encourage your students to do, to kind of have a more active participation on this environmental crisis.
Okay, so as a starting point to anyone wanting to support the movement is definitely to educate yourself first. And if this is achieved and teachers...
Okay, oh, sorry, I think we missed one point that I was going to say, sorry.
All right.
So change happening in the classroom is a strong belief in bioplastic bags. That is why we feel it's so important to create this change in the classroom, where we learn all about the issues and solutions in our world today. One example of this for me is that I was actually introduced to bioplastic bags, and I was inspired to work with them because of a TED Talk that my English teacher in class gave. So it was on persuasive writing, and obviously my teacher was focusing more on the persuasive techniques that Melati and Isabel used in their talk. However, I think it created a very positive impact of the kids because the content was really inspiring. So that is one way that you can kind of encourage it, even integrating environmental materials in your classroom without making it like a unit just for the environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry for that. Actually, it is a really good example that my colleague just gave, because it shows how all the teachers, not only Ira's teacher here, can actually implement in their own school and do that to their students. Because look, maybe IR has the opportunities to fight for this climate crisis. So teachers, you can actually do that too. So your students can also get involved. And so here, to make it easier to educate yourself and as well as educate your children, implement the program or activities that IRS teachers, for example, did. Here we have, maybe you can break down for four semesters. First semester, you can talk about the water and maybe water pollution. And then second semester, let's say you talk about land and soil and maybe the waste and chemical impacts on the soil. And then the third semester, let's say you talk about the air and air pollution and how transportation give impact on air pollution. And then fourth semester, talk about the alternatives and solutions, and engage in students' discussion and listen to their ideas, listen to what they have to say about this. And all right. And actually here, all right, next slide. We, Bioplastic Bags, we're willing to help. So in the short future, we will be printing more than 3,000 more copies that we will happily distribute to students and teachers. And it can really help you to implement the activities that we suggested previously. And Bioplastic Bag is also open to speaking opportunities in webinars and schools to further share about our movement. So as I mentioned previously as well, we go to schools, a lot of schools, for now online based, to give school presentation. And from there, we can actually, in more details, we can tell you how you can actually start your own club. And we also have like monthly assignment and what we will guide you like step by step on how you can actually implement or all the programs and make it an actual thing.
Okay. So with that, we have come to the end of the presentation. Talia and I, as representatives of Bioplastic Bags, are enormously thankful for this opportunity that we get so we can share more about our organization and the work that we have done. Additionally, we hope through this, more people will support youth-led movements and see students' capability to become young change makers.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we know that kids are only 25% of the population. You can see here in our last slide here, but we're definitely 100% of the future. So you have to listen to us, yeah, and start making actions and change with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Aira. Sorry, I'm still muted. Sorry. Thank you, Aira and Talia, for the inspiring talk. So we'll come back to you for the question and answer session. So I think it's very inspiring, making the real actions. Like it's not only the awareness that we need to build, but also into actions that we need to change behavior. So if you would like to start also such a student group, you can also invite Bioplastic Bags and how to start the group in your schools. Yeah? So they already offer like how they could help you. Okay, thank you once again, Aira and Talia, for sharing. And then the next, I would like to also invite Pak Ismail Anas. So Pak Ismail Anas is a lecturer of English in Polytechnic Negeri Ujung Pandang, yeah, in Makassar. So his current research interest falls within the area of COL and also PBL and also TBLT, digital literacy, and also ELT methodologies. So Pak Anas would like to share also what he has been doing in his class, especially in integrating the environmental issue in his class. Pak Anas, you have 7 minutes to share in this session of yours.
Okay, thank you, Pak Taufik. Hello, everyone. Good morning, Jakarta. And good afternoon, Ambon, Papua. It is now 12:11 Makassar time. Thank you, Pak Taufik, and also thank you to British Council Indonesia in partnership with Teflin for organizing today's webinar on climate actions in language education. I'm really happy to be sharing my work with hundreds of language teachers joining today. It's amazing. With me today, Ismail from Makassar, and I would like to welcome you to my sessions and allow you to Allow me to begin this talk by greeting you in Islamic way. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And dear fellow Muslim teachers, happy fasting day and have a great Ramadan. Well, my talk today will be sharing some best practices of infusing environmental education in our language classroom. I might be speaking a bit fast because I only have 7 minutes to talk. I'm sorry. First of all, I'll be talking about the importance, why should English lessons be combined with environmental issues? And secondly, some tips for integrating English lesson with environmental issues, as well as some of our best practices that might inspire you to do more impactful actions on environmentally based language education. And the last, I'll be giving some suggestions for revisiting the language learning pedagogy, and thereby we can integrate context-based or environmentally based language learning experience. Now let's get started. The importance why English lessons combined with environmental issues. Teaching English is not only about teaching tenses, vocabulary, and the 4 skills in English, but beyond that, we English teachers are also the agents of change who are responsible for educating our students to use their socio-semiotic sense to empower their ways of being, doing, and saying. By adopting environmentally based language learning, we can get some benefits. For example, number 1, we can attract the students' interest in nature and the impact of environmental conditions on people and animals. The second, we can raise the students' awareness of ecological and environmental issues. And the third, we can educate our students to be environmentally friendly, so we can teach our students to love and care of their environment. Number 4, we can also expand their vocabulary learning spectrum because they can learn from what they do. And we can also encourage our language teachers to explore and develop environmentally based material and resources for their teaching. You all might have questions in mind. What can we do? What to do? Where to start and how to do it? Ira and Talia has given us some examples on how to do it. But here I'm giving you some tips that might be useful for your language class. I just picked some useful strategies that you can do in your teaching. Number 1, let me just share a screen first. I'm just going to show you one picture only, this one. Yeah. So number 1 that you can do is doing a photo voice. Photo voice that where students photo waste the local waste management, plastic waste recycling, industrial waste, or anything in their surrounding. They took photos of their surroundings and brought them into to the class. They then discussed the photos with other students, where they can talk about them from different perspectives. They can talk about the causes, the impact, the solutions, and the action to solve the problem. And you know, students like taking photos, don't worry. Showing off they like showing their creativity. So the next one is that you can do a poster presentation. That's we found it useful in our teaching, that students can create poster about the global warming, deforestation, and coral reef conservation. And the next strategy, you can also do digital storytelling. Where students tell stories about air pollution, water pollution, and plastic waste management in their context. And the last things that we found very useful in our teaching is doing a podcasting project where students create vlog videos of beautiful nature, waterfall, butterfly captivity, and so many things that the students can do in their context. We've been doing this for several years, and we found that students were really enthusiastic, autonomous, and explorative. And that's the points that we found. We adopt a project-based and task-based language learning approach for the aforementioned language learning activities. And then Talia and Ira just talk about an amazing project that they do in schools and gives us some examples on how to deal with our environment. In the future, we hope that we can plan some other environmentally based language learning project that can make meaning for both teachers and students. And the last thing, I'd like to give some suggestions for language teachers that English teacher must be explorative, creative, and be innovative. And that's the way you can make meaning and improve your language teaching pedagogy without contesting the demand for a national curriculum and mandatory textbook. And however, revisiting the textbook content might be necessary. Okay, well, everyone, thank you for joining my talk today. I hope we can create more impactful climate actions in the future from the lens of language education. And we're looking forward to hearing your success story in the upcoming conference organized by TEFLIN this year. Maybe Pak Taufik will share about this information later. Thank you to British Council Indonesia, TEFLIN, fellow speakers, and special thanks to Pak Kong, Ibu Maria, and Pak Adi, the British Council Indonesia, for your happy for this talk. And back to you, Pak Taufik.
Thank you, Pak Anas. Once again, it's call for action, because that's, I think, the keyword in integrating climate change awareness into our classroom. And we'll come back to you, Pak Anas, in the Q&A later on. And now I would like to invite our third speaker in the sharing session, and we have Ibu Renata Nikijulu, graduated from Queensland University in 2007. She is now a lecturer at Padimura University. Besides, she is an English language training assistant, or ELTA trainer, and chief editor of Matai International Journal of Language Education. Ibu Renata, time is yours. So you also share what you have been doing in Ambon. Time is yours now.
Thank you, Pak Taufik. Let me start with the share screen first. Okay, right. So let me introduce myself. My name is Renata Nikijulu. I'm also a lecturer from Padimura University. I'm a teacher or lecturer from the Padimura English study program. And one of our course, so what Talia and Ayla already introduced some of the things that really inspired us, and also from Pa Anas with the valuable tips, and from Pa Com. For me, I'd like to show some of the product and the product from our English study program, that is environmental English course. That's one of the course in our English study program, which you can see there are some product that our student come. But let me start with introduction about our course. So our course is environmental English course. It's the elective course with 2 credits. The objective of our course, we have 2 objectives, that a student will be able to raise awareness of our community of environmental issues. The second one is put action to the heightened awareness through the community service initiative and other eco-friendly challenges. What Pa Com already mentioned, that we have to serve with the people, right? So that's why we have this raise the awareness, start from our community, start from our student, and then put action with the what they aware about the environment. Our team, since we start our course, or this course start from January, that's why we leaning towards the main team from World Environment Day. So it's on the 5th of June. So usually at the end of the course, we held some exhibition, so poster exhibition, and then showing what actually the product, or the awareness, the action that the student already conduct throughout this semester. So we're leaning toward the World Environment Day, which is the 5th of June. And then, of course, for Environment English course, we use project-based learning, because as you know, project-based learning is, it's a student-centered pedagogy. Student acquire deeper knowledge through active exploration of a real-world challenge and then problem. That's why in our course, the first meeting to third meeting, the student are eager to find out more information. So in our course, we, as a teacher, as a lecturer, we provide some movies or videos or documentary movies related with the environment, especially leaning toward the theme from World Environment Day. And then we encourage the student to dig more about the information, and then they will propose a project related with the topic that they found. And then we working together with Indonesian Institute of Sciences, or what we call LIPI. We also working together with local people and community, especially local people that they have some project related with that. And then during 2012 to 2015, we have the Access Micro Scholarship Program that Pak Taufik also familiar with that, because they have some, each semester they have the project they have to do with various, and one of them is the environmental awareness. And then let me show you the pictures. So I'd like to show you, this is the reality of even though it is small, but for me it is big to our students. So one of the semester, a couple of years ago, we encouraged the student to do some recycling. So like you can see in this slide, they create a lamp from empty water bottle, and then they create like a table, broken table, and then they fix the table and they change into the chessboard. Okay, they have the bags, which is really important for them to realize that this is the product that they can create. The other one, since we have only 7 minutes, so this is the photos from our textbook. So yes, our activities, it's a field trip to LIPI. We have visiting mangrove plantation in one of the village in Ambon. Some students, they conduct a campaign about the importance of garbage bin in public places. Even they have local beach cleaning. However, because during the pandemic, of course, we cannot do that. That's why we change into creating some textbook that related with the environment. So these are some of the textbook that the student, of course, one of the challenge that we have is the endless editing process, because we have to editing all the writing and everything, but it's worth of try for our student. And the other challenges that we have that related with the stakeholders, so corresponding process with the stakeholders, especially with the LIPI and the schools. Of course, we have to do some things that really related with that. So yes, that's one of our challenge. And then the one that I'd like to show you, before the pandemic, we have some exhibition. So this here are the photos from our poster exhibition throughout the years. We have, this one is the one of them in 2014, we create a poster to visitors to visit our exhibition. And then we give them some opportunity for them to be creative. So some of them like to create their create the poster by themselves. So yeah, you can see there they have the community service, the cleaning the fort, Amsterdam fort, and then they put it some like poster, handmade poster. As you know, we have a visitor from LBI UI, Pak Taufik, really familiar. At that time, they come to Ambon for the English camp. And then at the same time, we have the exhibition. So that's why I invite them. And really, they just realized that, yes, of course, Ambon still have problem with the environment. That's why we really encourage them to create like this. So that's what our course. And then, as you know, that for the student responses, they have 3 points that they really respond to our course, that it's excited, challenging, and enjoy. So this is what the one that I like to share through this, and then that's why I really like to thank British Council, especially PACOM, for this amazing opportunity, so I can share this, because this is already happened throughout the years. I think start from 2012 or 2000. Yeah, I mean, way before 2014, 2012, I think. So that's why. Okay, I have already finished with 7 minutes, but Taufik, please forgive me. Because I'm too excited to share this information for all of you. So yeah, I mean, thank you very much. This is the way for me to express our feeling about our course. Okay, so thank you very much, all of you. Thank you, Pak Taufik, back to you.
Thank you, Ibu Renata. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I think it's also inspiration for all teachers, yeah, to know what you've been doing, especially in incorporating climate change into your classrooms and how to make your students excited about it. Okay, now we come to question and answer session. I hope you don't mind if we extend about 10 to 15 minutes with a bit over times as we plan, but I think it is okay. Now I would like to start by inviting Ira and Talia. Are you still there, right? Okay, so we have a question to you. So teachers would like to know more inspiration on the project base. If you have any other project base in campaigning this environmental issue, especially in bioplastic bag, would you please share? And then the second question is that if they are interested to have you to inspire their students, how can they contact you? Okay.
Okay. Okay. So, Era, you want to start for the workshop? I'll start for the contacting. Yeah.
Right. Well.
Okay.
So like I've mentioned before, one of the main reason I started to work with bioplastic bag was because I was inspired by the TED talk that Melati and Isabel gave and was shown in my English class. So I don't know if everybody heard, because I was rushing through tadi. But that's one way that you can also integrate environmental material. So in your class, even without it being an environmental studies class. So even you can, let's say for English class, you can analyze documentaries, read articles and things like that. And for the English class itself, you will still get kind of the benefits. You're still going to analyze it and write about it and kind of just see it. But the context itself, the content itself, it will definitely inspire kids to kind of take change, and it's like an increased exposure to them to environmental issues. So I think that's one way you can do it. If you don't have an actual environmental studies program in your class, I'm in a very privileged position. My school does offer that kind of class, which is very great to me. But I think most of my friends are also trained, kind of encouraged to to know about these issues, because our school kind of pushes global mindedness, so being open to social issues that are happening around the world and kind of empathize with them.
Okay, maybe I'd like to add on that. If not only for English teachers and English subject, maybe the teachers that are watching also can share to your teachers' friends. For other things that you can also implement in your school, maybe workshops, upcycling plastic waste into something else. Maybe previously Bu Renata has also mentioned that kind of program as well, right? And so yeah, to contact us, maybe you want to start a club, so that it's not just a one-time event or workshop. You can always contact us on Babel Plastic Bags Jakarta account on Instagram, or I think, or email us on bbpb.jakarta@gmail.com. So there you can always invite us. We can do a school presentation. You can start your own club, and we can always guide you on what kind of ideas you can implement, what kind of workshops, projects. So it will be sustainable and continuous. Yeah.
Yeah, and as we mentioned before, the Bioplastic Bags Jakarta team, the school clubs, we are all very connected with each other. So each month we have projects that all of the school clubs take part in. So you're definitely going to be pushed by other members to kind of do well and kind of commit to bioplastic bags.
Yeah.
Okay, Ira, Talia, thank you. I think there are like some other question because of the time constraint. I cannot like deliver all the questions, but Ira and Talia already shares their contacts, so you can contact them through Instagram. I think it's more practical if you would like to start your Bye-Bye Plastic Bag school club, yeah, in your schools. Just contact them. Thank you once again, Ira and Talia, for sharing. And then Pak Anas, I would like to ask a question representing our participants today. What are the challenges, especially in making into action in your experience, Pak Anas? Because teachers make a comments that they already doing that, but it's only in the classroom, but no action. So based on your experience, what were the challenges, if you would like to share?
Thank you for the questions, Pak Taufik. Anyway, we've been working for years of infusing the environmental issue in our teaching, but we found some problems that may that we can encounter. For example, the curriculum and textbook that we have today. So it is a mandatory textbook from the Ministry of Education, and as we know that teachers, our teacher doesn't have any space for design and developing their locally based and context-based language learning materials and resources. So we can say that our teachers is not curriculum developers or material developers. They're just a executor of the curriculum and something like that. And the second one, it might be the environmental issue is not mandatory to be included in our textbook and language learning project. So it just be an initiative of the English teachers to include environmental issue in their teaching. And that's very limited, if you can say. And number three is the maybe is the lack of environmental literacy program in language education. So I think the Ministry of Education should empower language teachers to more aware of the environmental literacy and also for our students. And the most important thing that we know that in doing our project, for example, project-based learning in some other big project, of course, we need funding, and I think that is really limited. And we don't. Some schools do not have support from the school, and they also then don't get support from the local government to do the project. And the last one is maybe this is the problem for our language teachers in Indonesia, that they lack of training for infusing the environmental issue in their teaching. So I think teacher professional development must be acknowledged, so the teacher can have opportunity to learn how to integrate climate actions into the language teaching education. I think that's from me, Pak Taufik. Maybe I have maybe more, but I think we have a limited time. Thank you.
Thank you, Banas, for sharing. So you underlined about lack of training. Speaking about this, I think Pak Kom already shared that in the coming week there will be like an online course that it can also be like a good stuff to join. Instead of funding, I think creativity that you underline is also very important. Yeah, despite not it is existence in the curriculum, but how we can really aware and incorporate this and develop like the issue of climate change and climate actions into our classroom. And now I would like to go to Ibu Renata. Ibu Renata, I heard that your university like have like a more progress in terms of curriculum, that there is a curriculum on environmental issue in your university. Would you please share a bit? It was a struggle to incorporate into curriculum.
Yeah, so that's one of the challenges that's also we face that problem, especially when they come up with the Kampus Merdeka Belajar curriculum. That's the one that we have to incorporate environment in that program. So since they have that curriculum, that's why we need to find out which one that we have to provide the curriculum. So the one that we still have that is that the environmental English course. At the moment, we have the ecotourism course. So ecotourism course will be like a combination between environment and tourism, because it's also leaning toward the our university vision and mission about the oceans. I forgot the name of the program, but we have to leaning towards the university vision and mission, so that we have to start with another course that really related with the program. So that's why at the moment we come up with another course. We call it ecotourism. So ecotourism that relates with the environment, a combination between environment and the tourism. So that's what we have. That even though I know that challenges is it how to create the material or the lesson that really related to the ecotourism. For our course at the moment, the environmental English course, we have to change every year with all the topic because we only leaning toward the theme of World Environment Day. But from that, it's really nice to have a variation theme, so that we can come up with another project. So that's why I mean that's what we still do that. The only challenges it's related with the correspondence process with the stakeholders, because when the student want to come to or visit like LIPI or Indonesian Science, we have to kind of like prepare all the papers and so forth. But I think for me it's not really a problem, because as long as you enjoy doing that, then I mean no problem, there's no challenge. That's thank you, Pak Taufik.
I love the last part, like a passion. When you really enjoy and you would like to do it, there won't be any challenges because you just can get it through. Okay, so now I would like to come back to Pak Kom. Pak Kom, so I put you at the end because I would also invite you to close the session at the end of your answering question. So the question delivered to you mostly about resources and material, Pak Kom, and also if you have examples on a project base, books, recommended material, will you share on how to incorporate the climate action into classroom? Please, Pak Kom.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And let me just start off by thanking all of our speakers, thanking you as the host, as our moderator, and thanking Bye Bye Plastic Bags and our speakers from Sulawesi, Pak Ismail, and from Ambon, Ibu Renata. It was really, I wish I'd given you more time. Next time you'll have more time. You had so much to share. I think on resources, I was very inspired by what Renata shared in her presentation about the resources that they have developed. I would say a couple of things. One, there are some resources at the moment on the British Council website, which you can have a look at, and there will be more specific lesson plans for this year for integrating climate-related topics into your teaching. But I would go back to what Pat Ismail said and say, really, although it's not mandatory at the moment for climate change education to be across the curriculum, we hope that you are inspired to integrate it yourselves. And you can do that through, again, putting on your green tinted glasses when you're delivering any lesson, and think about the environmental angle to that lesson. But you also could write some of your own lessons that are around the environmental issues in your local area, in your community. which kind of leads me to a little bit about what Bye Bye Plastic Bags have said and about teaching in general. Teaching should be about your students, not about you as a teacher. It should be about your students, listening to them. Listen to the kids. Give them space to talk about what they care about, what they're interested in. I think we know young people are deeply passionate about the environment. They're deeply worried about the future. So give them space in your English lessons to talk about it, to explore that topic together, to learn more together, and to take action together. So that goes into projects. You can design a project with your students. Maybe they want to make a video about environmental action in your community, or they can do a beach clean, or they could measure their own water usage and see if they could use less water if they're using a lot, or less electricity if they're using a lot. Individuals can make a difference. And I would say that Indonesia, every country is particularly important in this battle against climate change, but Indonesia is particularly important. It has some of the largest forests in the world, in Papua especially, and we want to save those forests because they give us the oxygen, and they help to tackle the emissions. They absorb the kind of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. But also Indonesia is incredibly biodiverse archipelago of thousands of islands. It has seas full of tropical fish, and a lot of the economy in Indonesia is based on, there is a lot of fishing. And so we want to make sure that those seas stay full of fish so that those communities can have a really good economy, a sustainable economy. And also, when we have tourism, lots of people come to Indonesia to experience this beautiful country. We want it to stay beautiful, to have the seas free from plastic, the beaches clean from pollution and plastic, so that people come and have a great time, an environmentally responsible time, and enjoy this beautiful country. So the time for action is now. If you want to learn more about how to integrate environmental issues into your teaching, you can register for our new course, and I encourage you to do that. I encourage you to tell your friends and other teachers about that. You can follow our website, and I look forward to hearing more from teachers like Renata and Ismail. I'm sure there are many of you out there that are doing great work already. So keep going and be part of that community of practice. So thank you very much. I'm going to finish now. I think we want to have a group photograph, Pak Taufik, if that's possible.
Okay, thank you, Pak Kom, for the closing session. And now I would like to invite all speakers to open the video, and we would like to have photo session together. Yeah, so, yeah, Aira, Talia, Pak Ismail Anas, and also Ibu Renata. So can we just count 1, 2, 3? But I think it's still on Pak Kom on the spotlight. Is that ready? Okay, let's count until 3. 1, 2, 3. Once more. 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Okay.
So, great. Thank you. Okay, so I hope our today's event will bring impact. So it's not only stop for the session that we have today, but we can inspire more to our environment, that we can take any action regarding to the climate change and make it into actions. So before I really close this webinar, now I have information to share that we will, TAFLIN would like to have the international conference. So yeah, so the link is over there, so you can get the detailed information on our upcoming conference, yeah, which is the 67th Tavlin International Virtual Conference and the 9th International Conference on English Language and Teaching, and it will be in Padang from 9 to 11 September 2021. So it is also called for papers. It's approaching the deadline for the abstract submission because it's going to be on the end of April. So we have keynote speakers and also plenary speakers over there. We'll also have Pak Kom Dons over there, yeah, in our upcoming conference in Padang. So, and it will be held virtually. So I guess that we can like invite like more participants as it's already been decided that it won't be held offline, but it will be held virtually. So that's the information session. Now I would like to inform you about the certificates. So materials and e-certificate. Yes, so thank you for joining this webinar. So please complete the evaluation survey to get the, wait a second. And then the link is over there. So it's off. Will you please put it back on screen, the link, so it can be, okay, yeah, so over there. So the link is over there. So the link to download the e-certificate and materials will be provided after you click submit. So you have to complete all the evaluation, and the link is over there. Then e-certificate will be available for download until 15 or 3 Jakarta time today. So if you are in the eastern part of Indonesia, it will be until 5. Okay, so once again, thank you for all the speakers, Pak Kom, Aira, Talia from Barbia Plastic Bag, and also Pak Anas, and also Bu Renata. So to all the participants, yeah, I hope that it will be inspiring for you to conduct your future classes on how to incorporate climate change into our classroom and further into action. And I hope we can be part and joining the force to make a better Earth for the future. Thank you very much for your attention, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.